Well, tensions remain high in Brazil after a high court this week rejected a complaint from President Jair Bolsonaro's allies challenging the results of this presidential election. Bolsonaro was narrowly defeated last month by leftist counterpart Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The margin of victory less than 2 percentage points. Now, Bolsonaro claims there were issues regarding some of the software in voting machines. In response, the head of Brazil's electoral court called the complaint offensive. What's this all mean? Now, to discuss it all, and the aspirations for Brazil and for Jair Bolsonaro, I'm joined by Gustavo Ribeiro. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Brazilian Report. Thanks so much for coming in. I know it probably takes you away from World Cup for a bit, but we certainly appreciate your time. Now, observers say it was a free and fair election. How's this going to affect Bolsonaro's credibility moving forward? Is there any kind of parallel you can draw to Trump? His supporters are going to rabidly follow him, but those who don't, going to dig their heels in deeper?
Well, Bolsonaro still manages a sizable portion of the Brazilian electorate, about 25–30%, which was his approval ratings leading up to the election. It's important to notice that even though Bolsonaro almost eked out a win against Lula, a big part of his votes were votes against Lula, more than for Bolsonaro. So Bolsonaro is rejected by the overwhelming majority of the Brazilian electorate, but his core supporters are growing more radical. They are still protesting the election, and they are resorting to more and more violent means to do so.
Let's talk a bit about how the public is reacting to this, and also the military, because Bolsonaro had a very close relationship with the military.
Yes, exactly. During the Bolsonaro administration, the military have received more perks than ever. Over 6,000 military officers were employed in the executive branch. They got raises and they got a lot of different benefits. And for the past year or so, they sort of catered to Bolsonaro's whims in challenging the legitimacy of the Brazilian electoral system without offering any shred of evidence that this system can be rigged. And then, just after the election, they published a report saying that they could not find any evidence of fraud. And then on the day that followed, they issued a second statement saying, well, we didn't find any evidence of fraud, but it doesn't mean that there could not have been fraud, which is a sort of trying to appeal to both sides, not getting into trouble with electoral officials, right, but still going Bolsonaro's way.
You know, and Lulu is going to inherit a very difficult economic situation. It's certainly going to make his job more difficult because you know that his opponents are just going to pounce on that.
Yeah, exactly. First, we have a budgetary knot to untie, the country's cash-strapped, and then what we are seeing with this anti-democratic protests that pro-Bolsonaro supporters are staging is that maybe this important part of the opposition will not necessarily try to do political opposition, but rather try to sabotage the next government. And it's important to notice that Brazil depends, like 2/3 of our cargo is moved on highways by trucks. And if you have protesters blocking highways, you quickly create supply chain problems. They tried to do that just after the election, and then the electoral officials ordered the police to quell this protest. So we're going to see a lot of tension, and that could be a strategy to try to keep the next government at bay.
Gustavo, you've been a great sport, and I can't let you leave without asking you at least one World Cup question. Is this going to be the year that they add another star to the jersey?
I don't want to jinx it, but I just want to say, not to be a homer, but Brazil was the team that impressed me the most in the first games.
Okay, I'll be following it. You know, I had the pleasure of traveling through that country about 10 years ago, and man, it is popular. So best of luck to you, Gustavo. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.